Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome you to the Africa House in Washington, D.C., and to this important high level on presentation of a policy report measuring the green wealth of nations, natural capital, and economic productivity in Africa. This policy paper was prepared following the African leaders' Nairobi Declaration on Climate Change and the call to action on the need to revalue the gross domestic product of Africa through the proper valuation of its abundant natural capital and ecosystem services, including its vast forests that sequester carbon to unlock new sources of wealth for Africa. It has been mentioned a little earlier. We are very rich. What are we saying about those riches? Do we know the value of those riches that we have? The policy paper also responds to the recommendations from the 38th Ordinary Session of the African Union in February 2024, which further emphasized the need to green GDP by incorporating the value of natural capital and associated ecosystem services. It was launched at a high-level presidential meeting of African heads of state and the government on the sidelines of the World Leaders Summit of the 29th Conference of the Parties, COP29 of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, held on the 14th of November 2024 in Baku, Azerbaijan, under the co-chairmanship of H.E. Denis Sassou Nguesso, President of the Republic of the Congo, and H.E. William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, Chair of the African Union Committee of Heads of State on Climate Change. The launch demonstrated bold conviction and deep passion by the heads of states and the government of their shared vision on the harnessing the green wealth of our dear continent for its sustainable development. The communique adopted the excellencies at the Baku was a clear testimony of their common position on this issue. Their advocacy recognized the need to build strategic partnerships and a better coordination among African stakeholders for investments in valuing Africa's abundance and strategic natural assets, including forests, sinks, biodiversity conservation, soil fertility, and other ecosystem services provided by nature's infrastructure. Honorable governors, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, today, as part of global advocacy, we will share with you key findings of the policy paper. Without preempting the presentation by Professor Kevin Urama, Chief Economist and the Vice President of the African Development Bank Group, please allow me to share one striking fact, which I consider the main takeaway of the report. We need to invest in systems of national accounts if we want to have accurate measures of our wealth and create a store of assets we can leverage in driving our ambitions of shared prosperity and sustainable development. Let me quote here the words of the famous British mathematician, mathematical physicist and engineer, William Thomson, first Baron Kelvin. I often say that when we can measure what you are speaking about and express it in numbers, you know something about it. But when you cannot measure it, when you cannot express it in numbers, your knowledge is of a meager and unsatisfactory kind. We need to ensure proper valuation of Africa's green wealth. When we know the value of this significant asset base and incorporate its true value into our national accounts, we can improve the risk and profiles of our economies and ensure we increase access to financial flows essential to financing our development, the development that we're talking about every day. And when we have the wealth, it will be really good for us to know what exactly that we have and how do we place the value on it and how do we exchange it when the world is as it is today, which is requiring everybody to put on the table what they have. Through the proper valuation of ecosystem services, we provide an incentive for countries to invest in preservation of their natural assets and enhance their value through local beneficiation, which in turn will create jobs and spur sustainable development. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that these are compelling reasons why we need to support our national statistics agencies and build capacity for our national statistics officers to help them value and incorporate natural capital in measures of the economy. Just look at these other two facts. Only 38 out of 54 African countries are currently using the 2008 system of national accounts, which is the most updated system used globally. 13 countries are still working with the outdated 1993 system of national accounts. Other countries still use an even older and abandoned system based on the 1968 system of national accounts. What does that mean? This means that current estimates of gross domestic product in many African countries are at best conservative and in most cases are not up to date and are most likely underestimated. This year, the System of National Accounts 2025 was adopted by the United Nations Statistical Commission at its 56th session in 2025. As the international statistical standard for national account statistics, this suggests that if we, African countries, do not update very quickly our system of national accounts, we will continue to misreport the value of our wealth. But we cannot afford to stay behind other countries. This is not just an economic or statistic question, it is also a question of national pride and the sovereignty. The second fact is that several African countries do not meet the 5-year periodicity recommended in the 2008 system of national accounts to update the GDP base year to reflect dynamic changes in the structures of their economies. This leads to an underestimation of actually GDP numbers, a sectoral misrepresentation, and low international credibility due to concerns about the overall quality and reliability of a country's statistical system. The bank did a survey in all the 54 African countries on status of implementation of system of national accounts, and the results were telling. Just the rebasing of the GDP led to the increase of the GDP by as high as 38.2% in Cote d'Ivoire, 36.7% in Benin, 33.5% in Niger. We need to talk the talk and walk the talk. It is time to turn our commitments and pledges into concrete actions. And honorable governors, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I can reassure you that the African Development Bank Group, working in collaboration with the African Union Commission, remains committed to support regional member countries in their efforts to update their system of national accounts and to regularly rebase their GDP. Africa has a lot to gain from proper valuation of its green wealth and the integration of the value of its services in systems of national accounts. We need to act swiftly and make bold decisions to accelerate the measurement of Africa's green wealth. Let us work collectively to make this happen. Thank you very much.